The doctors in Trinidad and Tobago, I'm going to ask the politicians here, and you can tell me. Have you been to the hospital? How many black doctors are taking care of you? Listen to the people. I'm just asking questions. Listen. Lawyers. 87% of the lawyers in Trinidad and Tobago are Indian. And if they don't like you too good, they ain't fighting for no justice for you. But wait, 65% of the judges are Indian. Lord have mercy. 98% of those in prison are African Trinidadians. 88% of those in the crazy house, black people. How many of you eat chicken? They tell me 100% of the chickens are produced by Indians. Now, I don't know. I just got these statistics today. So you have to correct this if it need correcting. But listen, if it's 3/4 truth, that's bad, bad, bad. The first Indians came to Trinidad in what? 1845. How long had you been here before they come? Long time, eh? They didn't come in the holds of ships, robbed of their name, their language, their culture, their religion, their God, their history. They came with their culture intact, their name, their language, their religion, their God, and a history. Today, they can unite, pool their resources, and buy up the land. They tell me half of Trinidad is owned by a Syrian Jew. I don't know the truth. I just got here a few days ago. Did you know if all your learned ones leave, they're your doctors. They're gone to England and the United States. The lawyers that should be standing up for you, they're gone. England and the United States. Huh? You don't have judges, enough judges to listen to our cases and handle them with justice?
You go to Nigeria, which is, if not the most corrupt nation in Africa, and it is, it could be the most corrupt nation in the world, Minister Farrakhan.
Oh, now, Mr. Wallace.
It is the most corrupt nation that I have ever covered. I've been there 25 years ago, and I've been there as recently as last year.
Fine. So what? 35 years old. That's what that nation is. Now here's America, 226 years old. You love democracy, but there in Africa, you're trying to force these people into a system of government that you just have accepted. 30 years ago, black folk got the right to vote. You're not in any moral position to tell anybody how corrupt they are. You should be quiet. and let those of us who know our people go there and help them get out of that condition. But America should keep her mouth shut. Wherever there's a corrupt regime, as much hell as America has raised on the earth. No, I will not allow America, or you, Mr. Wallace, to condemn them as the most corrupt nation on earth when you have spilled the blood of human beings. Has Nigeria dropped an atomic bomb and killed people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Have they killed off millions of Native Americans? How dare you put yourself in that position as a moral judge? I think you should keep quiet, because with that much blood on America's hands, you have no right to speak. I will speak because I don't have that blood on my hand. Yes, there's corruption there. Yes, there's mismanagement of resources. Yes, there is abuse. There's abuse in every nation on earth, including this one. So let's not play holy to moralize on them. Let's help them.
I'm not moralizing. I'm asking a question, and I got an answer.
Why would you put it as the most corrupt regime in the world? That doesn't make sense.
Can you think of one more corrupt?
Yeah, I'm living in one. I'm living in one. Yes. You've done a hell of a thing on this earth, so you should not be the one to talk. You should be quiet when it comes to moral condemnation.
What is your real name?
In my
Malcolm X.
Is that your legal name?
As far as I'm concerned, it's my legal name.
Have you been to court to establish the
I didn't have to go to court to be called Murphy or Jones or Smith. Excuse me for answering you this way.
That's
If
all right.
a Chinese person were to say his name was Patrick Murphy, you would look at him like he's insane, because Murphy is an Irish name, a European name, or the name that has a Caucasian or white background. And a yellow person, Chinese is a yellow man, and he has nothing to do or no connection whatsoever with the name Murphy. And if it doesn't look proper for a person who is yellow or Chinese to be walking around named Murphy or Jones or Johnson or Bunch or Powell, I think it would be just as improper for a black person or the so-called Negro in this country, as we're taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, to walk around with these names. And therefore he teaches us that during slavery, the same slave master who owned us put his last name on us to denote that we were his property. So that when you see a Negro today who's named Johnson, if you go back in his history, you'll find that he was once his grandfather, or one of his forefathers was owned by a white man who was named Johnson. His name is Bunch. His grandfather was owned by a white man that was named Bunch.
Would you mind telling me what your father's last name was?
My father didn't know his last name. My father got his last name from his grandfather, and his grandfather got it from his grandfather, who got it from the slave master. The real names of our people were destroyed during slavery.
Was there any line, any point in the genealogy of your family when you did have to use the last name, and if so, what was it?
The last name of my forefathers was taken from them when they were brought to America and made slaves. And then the name of the slave master was given, which we refuse. We reject that name today.
You mean you won't even tell me what your father's supposed last name was or gifted last name was?
I never acknowledge it whatsoever.
Let me ask you about the status of Elijah Muhammad. First of all, is he ill?
I spoke to him today. He is in better health than he has been.
Greetings, listeners. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, I bear witness that there is but one God. Welcome to the Black Agenda here on the Street 919 FM. I am Brother David Muhammad, and I'm going to be in studio with you up to 9 o'clock this morning. And in a short while from now, I will open up the telephone lines and take your calls on 342-0081 and 466-5391. We're also live on the social media pages of the Street 919 FM, and you can send text messages or WhatsApp messages directly to me on 332 0214. So, beloved family, another week in Trinidad and Tobago, and today is a very, very special day. A day that we've actually been looking forward to for about a year and a month. Because some of you may recall, and time is flying by so quickly, last year, in the month of May, we made an announcement that we are opening a boys' academy on June the 5th. And then, within days after that, the lockdown went back into effect. In fact, in total, we went on total lockdown. Total lockdown. Sometime within the first week of May last year. And of course, that had to be postponed. So, things started to be freed up sometime around November. We went in a position to do it in November, December, January. Well, the year started off with a lot of distractions and issues taking place. So anyway, today, Saturday, June 11th, we're launching our Boys Academy at the Kwame Ture Center from 10 o'clock this morning. And this morning is the orientation session. So we are calling on young men, and of course the parents of the young men, 17 years and under. 17 years old and under. To the orientation session today, which will be conducted by myself, and of course we have a full schedule of sessions. We're doing the sessions in terms. 10 weeks at a time, then there'll be a break for about 4 to 6 weeks, and then cycle 2 will start, and then cycle 3. So we're running from today, June 11th, for 10 weeks. I think that takes us somewhere to the middle of August. Then the next cycle is starting towards the end of September, finishing in early December. Then the next cycle will start in mid-January and take us up to somewhere around March, and so on and so forth. So it kicks off today. You can bring down the young men. They could register on this day. And we have a team of powerful mentors, young people who have achieved, persons who have established themselves in a profession, in an occupation. We have business contractors, young doctor, young lawyer, accountant, national footballers, young people, many from within the heart of the East Port of Spain community, who, against all odds, resisting all forces, remained focused, disciplined, hardworking, and productive. Took their education seriously, combined it with their ambition, and took their life to another level that they can now turn around and give something back. And let me say, education is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. One of our problems in our community is that we suffer from anti-intellectualism. It's like we feel proud about having not achieved. And you could criticize someone for having education. It's sad. But this team that we have, we're very excited about this project. And as I've been saying, nothing happens before its time. We opened the Kwame Ture Center in 2018. And it wasn't until 2020 that we started the lessons program. Okay. We wanted to start it right away, but nothing happens before its time. Got together the team of teachers to teach maths and English and literature and POB, POA, social studies, human and social biology. Right, we can't force these things. This is 4 years later after the opening. Again, nothing happens before its time. And remember, our youth population is transforming so quickly. There will be some youth who would have been probably 3 or 4 years old at the time when we opened the center, who would be 6 or 7 or 8 around now. Same thing, there would have been young men who would have been 15, 16, now 18, 19, 20. Time waits for no one. So, question is, what are we going to do with our lives? What are we doing with our lives? Allah says in the Holy Quran, in Surah 2, that everyone has something that they're striving towards. Everyone. Everyone has a purpose. Everyone has some goal in both their heart and mind, a mission, a dream for which they want to achieve. Then Allah says, so vie with one another or compete with one another in doing good works. So everyone has that flame within that they're trying to accomplish something. Everyone. Some dreams are big, some dreams are small. Some dreams might be trying to establish something great. Other dreams might be trying to get something to eat. But Allah says, Surah 2, verse 148, everyone has a goal to which he turns himself. And that we must focus on good and then vie with one another in the doing of good. But then Allah says in Surah 33, verse 5, says there's no blame on you if you make a mistake, but you are answerable for the purpose in your heart. We will all make errors and mistakes. And Allah says he'll forgive you for that. But what is in your heart? What was your intention? That's where we're judged. Now, this week, I did quite a bit of media this week, because needless to say, quite a few persons in media and radio and television wanted to get a comment from me on those statements made by the opposition leader. I have tried my best to stay on track with what we're doing today, but of course I respond to that. And once again, I am becoming reacquainted with the different degrees of expectation that people have of me. And I appreciate that so very much. You have no idea. But this work that I'm doing is my mission that I have been consistent with from day one, never changed my tongue, never changed my mind or my view, never joined a political party, and then left that political party to join another one, and then when things weren't going well, joined back. And with the joining and leaving and joining again comes with a whole lot of rhetoric. I've never joined a political party in the first place or become actively involved with any political movement. But I have my brothers and my sisters in the political parties, in the trade unions, among the activists, the Pan-Africanists, the Christians, the Muslims, the Rastafarianisms, the black farmers. Now, we're looking to make inroads in and among our youth. But I am not the person who will turn my attention away from the bigger picture, the mission at hand, and jump on a bandwagon of talking about how stink or dirty or dishonest some politicians. I'm not going to host any march calling for anyone to resign. Now, if you do that, I respect you for that decision, but that is not me. I think the whole system needs to be dismantled. And I know that no single individual coming in or going out would make a difference in the system in the way that it has been constructed on falsehood and injustice. And I don't believe that there's any bad person who can come out or any good person who can go in who will transform that system in the way that it needs to be transformed. It needs to be dismantled, broken down. That's why I've never voted in it from since I was 18 years old to now. That isn't my belief. So you might have hopes for me or expectations of me, but you cannot twist, distort, transform, and change me into what you would like me to be to fit your purpose. Now, I appreciate it, without a doubt. But this work here, and you have to be careful as to how you go about constructing your own thoughts when it comes to dealing with current affairs. Is it rooted in principle? The position that you have, the opinions that you formulate, are they rooted in principle or are they rooted in some kind of different objective? In an interview yesterday, I had to say, look, so we had Ramadan recently. There are people out there based on the, now again, I totally appreciate the sincerity of those genuine views and opinions that are so diverse. All of the sincere ones I appreciate. But I know there are many that are not sincere. And the way that lust for this kind of politics infects the brain of so many of our people and renders them almost incapable of thinking straight thoughts. It's scary. I think it is sad. I think it's pathetic that ever since 2018, when we moved on to another level of the mission, with establishing a center, and trust me, this is the only radio station or medium period that I have to say these things. But understand something, beloved. When you start to grow, you would shed skin. Your cells would change. your biology would transform, and you take on new cells, and you develop and you expand. 10 years ago, when I was renting buildings all over the country, mainly Port of Spain. So we're having a meeting, we rent a community center, then we rent the technology center. We rented the library. We would write letters for permission to use a venue. And then we grew a bit in establishing a building fund and a building project. Now, there are those who will always be around you that when you start to grow would be uncomfortable with your growth. I'm sure you know this. There are those that if you start to expand in anything, beloved, anything, it could be from going from having a pair of slippers to a new pair of shoes. Any kind of improvement, development, growth, or expansion is not always received with comfort by everyone around you. But you will attract to you those who will gravitate towards your spirit of development and growth and expansion. And there are those, who I hear, I don't pay that much attention to it, but it comes across my desk sometimes. There are those who have worked really hard to try to discredit the work that I am doing. Okay, fine. So we need to stop listening to him. We need to stop buying his books. We need to stop supporting him. Okay. But I've noticed that since that onslaught began, which has been approximately 4 years, the amount of growth that this message has received is something else. It's so inspiring. So there are those who will do their best. They will bleed and they will sweat and they will exert the forces of their muscles to try to do you harm, to stab you in the back, to pull you down, to malign your name. We live in a society where a significant proportion of the people believe that the only way that they can go up a ladder is if they try to pull you down the ladder. That's the reality of our situation in this society. But beloved, know for a surety that if what is in your heart is sincere, the more they try to do that, the greater you will become if you don't lash back at your own people. I'm not in competition with anyone. I'm not in rivalry towards anyone. I don't sit at home with a pen and a pad or a computer and plan and plot how I could try to do harm or malign or bad talk another person. That's never been in my spirit. And if you do that, I can assure you, it's not a matter of might or it will backfire on you. The same moments where they come at you and try to do everything that they can in their strength to try to pull you down. Those are the same moments that once you don't sink down into that same gutter and you stay on your feet and keep your head above water, that's when you'll start to grow. And my critics, who are from among my people, I love them genuinely and sincerely because they are my people with different opinions. And all of them know, the ones who know me personally, all of my critics know that I am more of a brother to them than many of those who they seek to support or boost or promote politically or otherwise. All of my critics, the ones who know me, they know that I will never use my voice, my resources, my office, my platforms to try to denigrate or malign or backbite or bad talk. That's not me. It's not who I am now, and it never was who I am for as long as I've been a Muslim, which now has been just around 30 years. But once you just keep stepping and say, oh, look at my brother, look at my sister, come on, come on. You just keep stepping. It's him. They say there are few Trinidadians who have videos on social media that cross 1 million. I've had one that hit 1.3 million. 3 things that don't work for black people: guns, drugs, and politics. I have at least I have about 4 that crossed 500,000. Maybe some of them are approaching 1 million now. I don't always check. And at least 12, between 12 and 15, that have crossed 100,000. Maybe about 20 that have crossed 100,000. Worldwide. And basically, there are 2 sets of people who are critics of most of the content that I share. One, local East Indians who consider this message of black consciousness as purely racist, and with a sense of paranoia against them. And within recent times, I'd say within the last 2 years in particular, especially since the Black Lives Matter movement, because every country that I go to, they're familiar with the videos, or I get calls and interviews from all over the Caribbean, US, Canada, UK. There are those white people in the southern parts of the United States in particular who have gotten acquainted with some of this work, and they join this bandwagon of criticism that is racist, to tell black people that they should, as a separate group, look to form themselves into economic power bases. And this common comparison about, well, if we were to say that about white people, like probably the most consistent question that I've received over the years about the black agenda is, how would you feel if someone were to have a white agenda? My answer has been consistent. Same thing I said 30 years ago, same thing I'm saying now. There already has been a white agenda. It's what you learn in schools. It's what you see when you go in some of those religious houses and they have a white image of a Jesus and a white Virgin Mary. All of that is the white agenda. The images in film and television that support the doctrines of white supremacy, the colonized mind education system from these post-colonial curriculums that have been placed in our primary and secondary schools. All of that has been the white agenda. So there are 2 main sets of critics, as I said. So you have that group, which is the larger group, basically, of non-African people who feel, no, this should not be said. And then the other group of critics, the smaller group, are some African people who support a political party. And it's so awkward that it seems like you expect me to become this political bandwagonist. And the same things that I'm saying now, when they were being said under different circumstances, they were welcome. But then when the political paradigm shifts, enemies become friends and friends become enemies. But like the prophet Abraham said, I just want to be a friend of God. And I could write down about 30 to 40 names of people who over the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, have constantly changed their opinions based on who is in office. So those of you who believe in the law of the land, bless you. I believe in the law of the Holy Quran. And in Surah 11, Allah says, you will find no change, you will find no deviation in his course. And in the book of Malachi chapter 3 verse 6, it says, God was the same yesterday as he is today, and tomorrow he changes not. So if your views on matters of social justice keep changing depending on who is voted in or who is voted out, I'm saying that's not healthy for your spirit. But from day one, since that first day at 22 years old, when I, by myself, went into Woodford Square and started shouting to the top of my voice, sharing some black knowledge. I was 22 years old. This was in 1993. No, I went in late 92 for the first time, December 92. From since then, when no one had a clue who this young brother was, he used to be wearing a suit and a bow tie. And I'd go into Woodford Square. Oh, so many of the beloved people who were there at the time have passed on. That was long before Ricardo Welch became the gladiator. He was known as Carlos. There was brothers, Reverend Fabister Chubby David, people like Chet Swayo, Imam Abdul Karim. Woodford Square back then was that was like the internet, beloved. Woodford Square in the early 1990s was like the internet. There was a very hostile environment too. And people used to gather there. It's sad that this culture has kind of faded away. But people used to walk into Woodford Square, working people, on their way home in the afternoons. I'm talking about 1992, 1993, 1994. And there I would go in there and just start talking, and a crowd would gather. I remember one day someone threw a firecracker. And as soon as the firecracker buzzed, we just kept rolling, kept talking. I said, so you see, the enemy will send in his people here to throw a firecracker to distract us from the truth because they don't want black people to get this information. Oh, man, those were the days. Next thing, you'll end up hiring Trinidad Theatre Workshop right across the road there. The old fire station building. Then rent somewhere else, and then rent somewhere else, and then end up putting the voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on the radio, and then end up on TV, and then write a book and just go through the whole motion. But I've been consistent from day one. Needless to say, there are people who see you and say, we'd like you to run for an election. We would like you to join our party. We think that you will do good as this or as that or the other. I appreciate that. But I am a Muslim follower of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We've established a black agenda, and I live by the law of the Holy Quran. That's who I was in 1992. And it's who I am in 2022. But in 1992, no one had expectations. No one wanted me to speak about this or speak about that, or don't talk about this or don't talk about that. People send me messages all the time. What about the African people in Ukraine? What about what's going on in the Sudan? What about the issue with, in fact, tomorrow, inshallah, I'm on interview with a Jamaican radio station about the position taken by Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves of St. Vincent in calling on Caribbean countries to boycott the Summit of Americas. And people say, but I'm not hearing you talking about what's happening in Nigeria. I'm not hearing about anything from you in the situation in Guyana. And then, what about PNM? What about UNC? What about the Prime Minister? What about the opposition leader? And then if you say something, oh, you shouldn't have said that. Stay away from them. Don't let them pull you into their web. Don't let them drag you down into their thing. Everyone has their view, their opinion of who they think you should be, and that is fine. But I am who I am. And I have to do what I'm doing. And my major focus, one of the reasons that today is such a special day, is because, yes, I'm doing an orientation session. Well, I guess next week you'll hear more about how it went, or you follow my social media pages, you'll see how it went. But one of the reasons that this particular project is so special to me is because our focus is on, so we have students, we have young students, but the mission of this is to make young leaders out of these students and to make positive leaders. So if we're dealing with young people, let's say between the ages of 16 and 23, let's say we have 50 or 100. For every 100, we have to create at least 10 of them who will be effective leaders among their peers. If you are a teenager and you could encourage other teenagers your age within the same circumstance, man, stay away from them drugs. Don't get involved in that. Why are you drinking all that alcohol? Listen, man, let's work on getting our education. Now we can't commit any crimes. Hey, listen, let's go into some kind of business together. Something positive, something constructive, something beneficial for the community. If you get and develop and teach and train young people to influence and inspire other young people like that, man, that is a major part of the job. So with this particular project, it won't be too long, inshallah, before I could just pull out of the picture. And then you have so many young brothers, so many young leaders, so many young influential people who could start to give that guidance, that mentorship. I'm really proud of this team. Once it kicks off right, negative peer pressure has been identified as one of the main causal factors of many of our young people going into crime. Juvenile delinquency, dropping out of school, taking drugs, selling drugs, wanting to carry a gun, commit a crime. These are often not ideas that a young individual will conjure up on their own. No, a young brother wouldn't be sitting in a room by himself and he's reflecting and then he's just allowing his mind to take him in that direction. It is peer group influences, peer pressure. But if we could train, teach, and develop them to engage in peer counseling, then we stand a better chance. So it's not just a matter of a whole lot of young people being taught by a whole lot of elder people, a whole lot of seniors, teaching and training a whole lot of juniors. Okay, that's the basic start-off template. But if we could get some of the 24-year-olds to be leaders, and some of the 18-year-olds to be leaders, and we already have some of them. If you could get the young 24-year-old brother to positively influence his peers, and then you have that domino effect of positive influence throughout the community. Oh, listen, this role, this mission of mediation between those brothers who were in conflict, the gangs. We went to just about all of them some years ago, and there's no difference whatsoever in the thought processes, in the sense of responsibility, in the goals to achieve survival. There's no difference at all with some of those young brothers and other brothers who are not involved in any kind of criminal lifestyle at all. The only difference, many times, is the circumstances. And if many of them were in a different circumstance, they would not be in crime. All right, so how do we create an avenue of opportunities to limit out those negative options? I'll be back in the 8 o'clock hour.
The views expressed are not necessarily the views of the management of the Street 919 FM.
Let's go. See when I tell you what I tell you. See when I tell you what I tell you. See when I tell you what I tell you. What I tell you, when I tell you, when I tell you, when I tell you. Let's go. Let's go. We are something special. Very special. Something special. We are something special. Very special. Something special.
for a safe and relaxed professional massage therapist and nutritionist? Look no further. Nature's Touch with Empress Judy and Associates offers a natural approach to better health. Treat yourself to a professional massage therapy and nutrition advice in a safe and relaxed atmosphere. Rejuvenate your body, mind, and soul at Nature's Touch Therapy. For an appointment, please call or WhatsApp 1-868-398-8282 or visit our Facebook page. Remember, your health is our responsibility at Nature's Touch.
Better vision for your physical eyes, and through the eyes of faith, let healing arise in your mind, body, and spirit. At Natural Healing Ministries, we teach kingdom principles for living that brings the blessing of God to your mind, body, and soul.
NHM Professional Associates are located at number 10 Moody Stewart Street, Monterey Post, San Fernando. For more info, contact Dr. Desmond Phillip at NHM on 349-3494.
NHM Professional Associates can be heard live on the Street 919 FM every Saturday from 9:05 to 9:55 a.m.
Blessings in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. You are invited to listen to the Final Hour broadcast heard every Monday from 12 midnight to 5 a.m. in the morning on the Street 919 FM radio. Here my mom, Pastor Helen Garcia, and myself, Pastor Valentine Garcia Jr., preach the Word of God to the elderly, youth, and children. We can be contacted at 629-0113 or 623-8444. The church is located at 26 Prince Street in Port of Spain. We look forward to you joining us. God bless you.
As my life I lay it on the altar, as my life.
Counselor for Monterey Navet, Nigel Cotier presents Splash, Bubbles and Foam. Saturday 9th July at Monterey Post Grounds from 10 a.m. Splash, Bubbles and Foam. Lots of prizes to be won. Look out for the Counselor's Cup Small Goal. Register now by calling the Counselor's office at 610-2861. All teams must be registered. There is no registration fee. Splash, Bubbles and Foam. Saturday 9th July, Monterey Post Grounds from 10 a.m. The football starts at 10 a.m. and the fun events will start at 3 p.m.
Share the live. Share the live. The Street 919 FM on Facebook and Instagram. Share the live. Iowa George on Instagram. Share the live. Iowa TV and Street TV on YouTube. Share the live. The Street 919 FM.
Brotherhood is required. Brotherhood is demanded. Brotherhood is obligatory.
Black man, get up. Black man, stand up. Black man, you better listen.
So there's a need for brotherhood.
Black man, get up. Black man, stand up. Black man, you better listen. Black man, get up. Black man, stand up. Black man, you better listen.
Brotherhood is demanded.
Black man, get up. Black man, stand up. Black man, you better listen.
Brotherhood is required. Brotherhood is demanded. Brotherhood is obligatory. Brotherhood is essential, it is urgent, and it is compulsory. But the time demands brotherhood. Whenever the dominant white society fears for its economic future, racial tensions are always aggravated. The aim of Almighty God is to bring the black man and woman together. The aim of Almighty God is that we, no matter how divided we have been in the past, must experience unity in order to gain the success that we seek and the progress that we desire. There is no way that a divided people can build a future. Brotherhood is required. Brotherhood is demanded. So there's a need for brotherhood. But if you walk the earth proud and arrogant, you never learn your lesson because you think you already know. And how the hell could you know and be in the shape that we're in? How can there be any brotherhood if there's not even the honoring of a word?
Black man get up, black man stand up, black man you better listen. Black man get up, black man stand up, black man you better listen. Black man get up, black man stand up, black man you better listen.
But the Quran and the Bible bear witness that the heavens and the earth were created with truth.
Black man stand up, black man you better listen.
Brotherhood is required. Brotherhood is demanded. Brotherhood is obligatory. Brotherhood is essential. It is urgent and it is compulsory.
Welcome back and welcome to the second hour of the Black Agenda here on the Street 919 FM. We're going up to 9 o'clock. Remember, this morning we launched the George Padmore Boys Academy at the Kwame Ture Center from 10 o'clock. 17 years and under, our young males, 17 years and under. And we will be teaching and training in self-confidence, self-esteem, life skills, mentorship, study skills, self-defense, education, respect for women, how to dress ourselves, speak properly, present ourselves, how to be ambassadors for who we are. Black history, consciousness. We're using audio, visual, images. We have a team of different trainers, professionals in different fields. So, like I said, we're looking forward very much to this. So you can bring down the young men to register this morning, if you wish, 10 o'clock, just before 10 o'clock at the Kwame Ture Center. Now, let me share something ideologically on this matter with the slave master's names statement. Because I want to read something that I wrote almost 10 years ago, which ended up in Black Studies, about this issue with our names. And while I stand with and defend our beloved sister, my beloved sister, Camille Robinson Regis, who in many ways has been, to me, probably the most thoughtful of all of the MPs within the last few years in this work. So I am standing with and I support my sister. I'm defending my sister. I condemn the statement made in reference to her by the opposition leader. But while I'm defending my sister, I cannot defend the slave master's name. Because 30 years ago, I myself had to write a letter coming into the Nation of Islam. And the letter ended with the words, I desire to reclaim my own. Please give me an original name. My slave name is as follows. And then I wrote out my slave name. That was 1992. In January 1993, I became known as David X. As you'll always hear this clip.
Malcolm X.
Is that your legal name?
As far as I'm concerned, it's my legal name.
Have you been to court to establish that?
I didn't have to go to court to be called Murphy or Jones or Smith. Excuse me for answering you this way.
That's
if
all right.
a Chinese person were to say his name was Patrick Murphy, you would look at him like he's insane, because Murphy is an Irish name, a European name, or the name that has a Caucasian or white background.
Right, so we're familiar with that conversation with Malcolm X. I had to go through that same process. In early 1993, I became known as David X. And then I carried that name until February 26th, 1996, when in Chicago, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gave me the surname Muhammad. And that was my reconnection with my African ancestry and heritage of the Mandingo, the Fulani, and the Hausa Muslims who came from Africa enslaved to Trinidad and to wider parts of the Caribbean. And so we have, so many. Back in 1888, in this country, there was a great lawyer who was leading a cause to make Emancipation Day a public holiday in Trinidad. Imagine this. This was for the 50th anniversary, 1888. And he took on an African name. His name was Emmanuel Mzumbo Lazare. And he's one of the first people we have on record in Trinidad taking up an African name. And then, of course, as we're familiar, Elijah Muhammad changed his name, and then he gave Malcolm Little the name Malcolm X, and then Malcolm X became Malik Shabazz. Our own Stokely Carmichael, national hero of Trinidad and Tobago, became Kwame Ture. When Cassius Clay won the World Heavyweight Boxing Championship in the early 1960s, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad named him Muhammad Ali, and he's known to many as the greatest boxer, greatest athlete, period, who's ever lived. And then you have H. Rap Brown, who became Imam Jamil El-Amin, and several others. And most African people who embrace Islam normally would change their names, either their entire name or their surname. So this is at the beginning of Black Studies, which of course was released in 2015. That's what, 7 years ago, but it would have been written probably about this part, about 3 or 4 years before that. So, it says, during slavery, they would brand the slaves like cattle. Now, after emancipation, we are still branded by the names of our former slave masters. They gave us their names that they took after things that were already here. So while all African and Islamic names are the names of the attributes of God and godlike principles, the Europeans, through the Europeans, we now have human beings with the names of animals. Now, all of these are real surnames. Now, in Trinidad, again, based on the slave plantations that were here, you have large quantities of people. As a matter of fact, you can hardly have a classroom of African people together in the same place at the same time without at least one person having one of the following names: Williams, George, Henry, Thomas, Alexander, or Smith. And there are some other very common names. I can't remember if I said Edwards. All of these are very common names, again, that we got from our slave masters, but it gets even more ridiculous. Like I said, all of these are real surnames. So we have white people with names such as bird, tiger, bull, wolf, and fish. It's difficult to decide if it's more humorous than it is sad. Let me say, a big man named Little, a bigger man named Small, a tall man named Short, a deaf-mute man named McCall, an unemployed man named Workman, a yellow man named Brown, a black man named White, a red man named Green, and a dirty man named McLean. A man with no shame named Pride, a man without a wife named McBride, a foolish man named Smart. And then we have names like Brook, Alley, Lane, Street, Wood, and Stone. We have African people who got names from their slave masters named Branch, Round Tree, Bell, Bill, Will, and Hill. So that is like branding. The problem was, though, that when non-African people make any kind of pronouncement on any matters of our historical trauma, it immediately must become red flagged. Non-African people do not have the right to remark on, make mockery of, to indicate some kind of humor in any aspect of our history, heritage, or legacy that involved torture, genocide, mass murder, and dehumanization of African people. So again, I say I'm defending my sister, Camille Robinson Regis, but I cannot defend that name. But I do condemn the person who said it for saying it, because as a non-African person, it is outrageously offensive and racially insensitive to make those kinds of remarks, especially in a world today, and I constantly use the example of the Jews and the Holocaust, reason being because they have been successful in censoring the whole world, in saying anything about them. How many people do we know who have lost jobs, lost earnings, been censored, fired, fined? Well, now it's happening in Europe for racism against African people. Yes, it's happening particularly in sports in Europe, especially in football. Make a racist statement and you're either fined or banned. Okay, slowly but surely. In an arena where there's a lot of racism against African people too. Do you know that I think England is playing Italy today in football? And they're playing behind closed doors. No fans allowed. They're letting 3,000 school children in the game. And the reason is because of the conduct of the fans, English fans who were just in Germany the other day for a 1-1 draw with Germany and England, who were showing the Hitler salute. You can't show any Hitler salute and what that represents and get away with it. You can't even say anything about the Jewish Holocaust that is coming across, if it's a joke, if it's insinuating something, if it's suggesting anything, you will lose your job. Two things: the Jewish Holocaust, and if you say anything about gay and lesbian rights, LGBTQ, homosexuality, you're gone. Kevin Hart, Lewis Hamilton, Dave Chappelle, whole long list of them. And the girl from Star Wars, right? Girl from Star Wars, the Mandalorian. She was also in Fast and Furious. Her name slips me right now. She said something about the Jews, so some simple statement. Nothing offensive, nothing like we want to do them harm or nothing like that. Just some simple statement. They fired her from Star Wars, the Mandalorian series, which is huge right now. So the Jews, because of their unity, because of their encasing themselves as a community and promoting their ideology as a community first, you think there are any Jewish people out there who will support a political party against their own people and go to war with their own people over some petty politics or getting some food? Never. Never. And so in condemnation of the opposition leader, and in me openly from an academic position showing why it is wrong, I still have to ask the question to us: how is it, especially in Trinidad and Tobago society, that we live in such a state where people of all other races feel that it's so easy to just say anything? Do you know how many of these so-called professors at the University of the West Indies just say things at will about African people and African history because they believe they won't be challenged by it? Someone who I have some respect for, Robert Amar, who owns 104.7 radio station. I heard him say that there was no slavery in Trinidad. I mean, it's not me to call into a radio station, really, but I had to call in and say, wait, what? Did you say there's no slavery in Trinidad? Broke down the history for him. He corrected it. He said he heard that from a professor at the University of the West Indies, an East Indian professor. Now, to his credit, he immediately said, well, look, we have this book here. He immediately came to the Kwame Ture Center, purchased the book, read, got the information, corrected his position. Good. Good. So I move on from that. But people outside of the African community feel that they are deputized to just say anything about African people without consequence. No. But how do you deal with it? You can't deal with it in a way that is just purely rooted in the politics. You have to show we have whole volumes of history that need to be highlighted and identified. But we have to be more mindful about how people of other races can just say whatever they wish about African people. And because of how divided we are, because we're more preoccupied with fighting against each other than the system of oppression against us, it is just allowed to slide. Like, there's a certain individual, again, someone who I respect for their intelligence, but one of the leaders of one of these small political parties. And I'll tell you this, I'm not going to name anyone. Non-African person. So here I am, we put out a press release for African Liberation Day, which we celebrated on May 28th. And in this post we said, so African Liberation Day, we're going to be rolling out our plan for our intervention strategy with our young men. This Boys Academy, which is now 2 weeks, so this was exactly 2 weeks ago. So we put out this statement, and leader of one of these smaller political parties, non-African person, he sends a message saying, why are you dividing the country? And that I should use my popularity to bring people together. So my response was, well, do you take this same position when it comes to Indian Arrival Day and the Chinese Association and the Syrian Lebanese Association, etc.? Now that was dropped right there, more or less. But 2 days later, so we celebrated African Liberation Day on May 28th. 2 days later was Indian Arrival Day. And the same individual put out a whole long message of congratulations and acknowledgement to the Indian community for all they've achieved and what they've done. So I messaged them back and said, wait a minute, 2 days ago, 48 hours ago, you referred to African Liberation Day as dividing the country. Here you are, 2 days later, acknowledging Indian Arrival Day. Now, this same individual, honestly, I didn't expect that, because over the last 10 years or so, he has been one of those main people who's been pushing this talk about, okay, so you have the black agenda, how would you feel if someone had a white agenda? From more than 10 years ago, been pushing that. And my response is always the same, has always been the same, is always the same. We already have the white agenda in the schools, in the religious institutions, in the media, in the textbooks. But again, what would make him feel so comfortable? And he says a lot of things about black people and calling for justice for black people in general. So look at it here. He thinks he has the right to say it. But if I say it is racist, but let him say those things. And again, it's like we have gatekeepers against our consciousness, and they observe us, see our disunity, see our division. All right? So, all of these are things that we need to keep in mind. And we have to be hypersensitive when non-African people pronounce on issues like our Holocaust. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan told me that there are those who are very upset when we use the term Holocaust. More than just upset. Upset is a mild term. When we use the term Holocaust to describe our enslavement, we have to guard that ideologically. So let me open up the telephone lines. 342-0081 and 466-5391 is always so unpredictable on a Saturday morning. But I just want to tell you one last thing, if I may. You could start calling in because this probably wouldn't take too long. One last thing. I want to tell you about George Padmore really quickly. So we're naming the Boys Academy the George Padmore Boys Academy. George Padmore is another one of those great heroes of Trinidad and Tobago who has never been acknowledged by the state. George Padmore went to the States in 1924. He was a journalist, he was a philosopher, he was a writer, but what makes George Padmore's history so unique is that from America, he was invited over to the Soviet Union. They picked up on his progressive ideas, especially on justice for African people within the trade union movement. And they saw his ideas so powerful. He was in America. They saw his ideas on trade unionism so powerful. They invited him over to Russia. And when he went to Russia, he presented a paper. He expressed his philosophy on workers' rights, on labor, on trade unionism. And they asked him to stay in Moscow, in Russia, to take up a leadership position within the trade union movement. Now remember, Russia, of course, was Marxist, communist, socialist in ideology. So from Russia, he ended up living in Germany. This is in the height of the time when the Nazi party was on the rise. And he left Germany, went to France, went back to England, and he wrote How Britain Rules Africa in 1936. And then the amazing thing about George Padmore, because nothing that I said there so far is the key highlight of his life, he ended up moving to Africa. And he became the chief advisor to the president of the first independent state in the New World in Africa. And he died in Africa. Unfortunately, he died in 1959. He died before Trinidad and Tobago got their independence in 1962. He actually passed away around the time of the independence of Ghana. So there's a building named after George Padmore in England. There's a monument to him in Ghana. But just like with Kwame Ture, he has not been acknowledged by the state, just like Henry Sylvester Williams as well. Of course, we have the CLR James Auditorium at the Cipriani Labor College. So we built the Kwame Ture Center in honor of probably our greatest national hero, Kwame Ture. And then we felt the need to, the University of the West Indies, the students' movement who were protesting against the name of Milner Hall. Of course, Milner Hall was a supporter of apartheid. Milner, white, racist. So they changed the name of Milner Hall, supposed to become Henry Sylvester Williams Hall. So we decided to lift the name of George Padmore again, so our youth, our young people can learn about George Padmore. And, of course, his name would be remembered now, just like that of Kwame Ture. All right.
On us.
So
that when you see a Negro today who's named Johnson, if you go back in his history, you'll find that he was once, his grandfather or one of his forefathers was owned by a white man who was named Johnson.
All right. 342-0081 and 466-539. Makola, are you there?
Good morning, Brother Mohammed.
Good morning, sir.
This is your friend from on the plane many years ago. Sat next to you, remember?
Friend from where?
On the flight, coming from Tobago.
Oh, yes, I recognize your voice, yes.
Good. Allow me to express my condolences on your most recent circumstances.
Well, appreciate it. Thank you.
Let's get right into it, right? Now, I have a question to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
Your agenda and everything is very, very, very prolific, all right? But one of the things I've been grappling with is this. Where the center is located, if we would like many of the conscious and, of course, the kind of work that you're doing is to create a greater consciousness in those who are less conscious. The concern I have is that a lot of persons do not want to come there, right? I will go there. I have been there, and you know that. But there are a lot of persons who I know, they don't want to come there.
All right, let me reply to that on the cuff. And I say to you respectfully that what you're saying now is a conversation that we were having basically 7 years ago. People said, if you build a center there, especially built by Muslims, people would not attend, they'll be afraid to come. I even heard on the week that we were opening, a man on the radio, talk show host, talking about, he said, right outside there's a shooting range. He said people shooting all day. This is the day before we open in the place. So there have been so many efforts and attempts to promote that view. But you know what happened? When we launched, right, with close to 1,000 people coming out. Now, I don't have the actual statistics, but I will estimate that if we had 1,000 people on the opening day, I would say at least 600 out of that 1,000 would have come into that area for the first time. The next year, same thing would have happened. When we had the African Unity Conference, we had well over 100, 200 people who would have come to the area for the first time. And I say this to you as well. Every single African Expo, we've had 11 so far. Every single public meeting visits to the office for one-on-one conversations, counseling, the public speaking workshops, the holiday camps for children, the classes, everything that we've done, including today, I could tell you in advance, we have people who come into that area for the first time ever. And so we could have been pessimistic in our thinking and say, well, people won't want to come to the area. But instead, we fought against that negative stigma. And if you look, there have been about 200 murders for the year so far. If you go back 20 years or so, or even 10 years or so, you have 200 murders in Trinidad. About 150 of them would have been in the East Port of Spain area. We have crossed 200 murders for this year so far. In my estimation, less than 1/5, if so much, maybe 1/10 of them would have been in the East Port of Spain, Mova, Laventil, Beetham, Sealots area. So the community is transforming. There were some 10 murders in some weekend, couple weekends back. None of them in Laventil. You're hearing about Malabar, Marabella, Valencia, Sangre Grande, Cuva, Chaguanas, but not in Laventil. But the funny thing about it is that the stigma would take a little while longer to come off because the stigma is still there. People still have these views in their head that were placed there, not based on any recent facts. Also, the gang warfare is over. It doesn't mean that there won't be shooting or killing as in any other part of Trinidad and Tobago, but the borderline has been eliminated since 2 years ago. So, yes, there might be some who might still be a bit fearful or concerned, but once they come there, brother, trust me, they leave there saying to themselves, wow, I had no idea that this experience would have been the way that it is. So, and I'm sure, again, I don't know the future, but this morning, the session that we're having there, I'm sure we'll have at least, I don't know, maybe at least 15 or 20 youth who would have never been to the center before or who have never been to the area before. And that's how it goes. That's the growth process. So I hear you and I understand, but I say to you respectfully that we are transforming that.
Let me endorse that. Are you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Let me endorse that everything you said in your response. I am all for that because it is not what it is. It's what is what it can be and what it will be. And my strong feeling is I share the same feeling that you have. If someone does not take the time to bring something that is meaningful, when will that process ever start? But you see, there are so many moving parts that, as you said, has caused a lot of stigmatization, right? And let me give you an example.
Yeah, but a lot of it is old. That's the thing.
No, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. Not old at all. And let me give you an example so that our people can understand in the level of the conversation we're having. When valuators write into valuations year after year after year, it becomes almost a history lesson. And the things they write and say is that the average Trinidadian or the medium income person does not have any interest in the neighborhood and stuff like that. That serves to undermine the efforts of persons like you and persons like me with a mindset and a strong commitment that if you do not do something, when will something be done?
I appreciate that, but there will always be obstacles.
No.
There will always be impediments. So that's why the struggle has to continue.
Because I've said, if you look at the boy who was 15 or the girl who was 15 since 2005, those two individuals are now 32, and in the last 17 years, since 2005, they would have seen no economic stimulus going on in their community, except for maybe they put in a little swimming pool and a community center. But we're talking about, instead of revitalizing, why don't we attempt to normalize these communities, right? Not revitalize. And it appeared to me that because there has been some sort of challenge to some 2020 vision, which come and go on already, and now you're talking 2030 vision, it is almost as though they're saying to the people, if you don't take what I offered you since 2002 and 2005 as 2020 vision, well, to hell with you. You know what? Until you're willing to accept what we want to give you, then you just have to stay there and we're going to just let your place run down.
All right, well, I hear you on that. This is why we have to take the initiative to engage in community projects as well. They can't all be government.
Right.
We have to take the initiative as we did.
Of course, we must create our own economy in these communities.
All right, well, thank you so much. Calls are backing up, but caller, good morning.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Makhi Mohammed. Brother David, this was a week. But I want to say something.
Not hearing you very loudly.
I say this was a week. This week going by here. With the negatives concerning, you understand, the African community. I told you already that my fear, I don't fear the European, the Indians or the Chinese. My greatest fear is my own people, the negative that we put onto each other. But anyway, I have a book here, a book of names with African names. And this book was done by National Joint Action Committee.
Yeah.
And it said, NJAC says, love the children. NJAC says, protect and prepare the youth. NJAC says, build the family. NJAC says, unite the nation. This book was done in the 70s. So it's about 50 years of money talking about with the names, African names. So while they want to crucify the opposition leader, who I have no respect for, you understand? What she said about the name is not a lie. The names that he carries is slave names. I changed mine. All my children carry African, Ethiopian, and Yoruba names, Swahili names. They carry it. I have named my contribution. My contribution has been that people come to me, you understand, because of my consciousness. When they are having children and they ask me for a name, I go into the book and I look for a name according to the time the child born, what happened. Because that is how we did it in Africa. I give them a name. My son just here, they called me and tell me, listen, there was a guy, if I see the guy, I don't know him. His name is Jabari.
Yeah.
His mother was having him, and she gave me, she asked me for a name, and I gave her Jabari and some other name. I don't know if I know the guy, and he knows he's having a baby. And I saw my son and tell him that he wants to get on to me to get a name for his child that he's having. Jabari means brave, you understand? And we use, and there are two children that I took, and I give names, Abiola and Fiola. Their parents had asked me for names. That's my duty, that's my work, you understand, as far as names are concerned. And I give to them two names, Abiola and Fiola. When they went to the church in Manzella, the Catholic church after the gas station, the priest refused to christen them with the names that they had. But it wasn't bad because they went to the Baptist church and it was done. You understand? When you look at names, you understand? Names are important. Names will tell who you are. When I change my, just like Makanda Draga, his hair was black. Kafra Kambo, his hair was black. Mutiba, all of them, their hair was black at that time. And when they change the name, our own people condemn and criticize them, try to humiliate them. My name, when I change my name, they try to give me pressure on the work. That pressure. Try to humiliate my name on the work.
And it's a sad reality of those of us who have been brainwashed against our own culture. But it's a symptom of that whole process. But thanks a lot. Thanks so much for calling. Calls backing up, as we said. Caller, good morning.
Good morning, my brother.
Good morning to you, sir.
Thanks for having me, sir.
Yes, sir.
I was one of those advocates. I had a problem with your former statement. This morning, I came in a bit late, but I was fortunate enough to hear you decide that you want to have a conversation about what the opposition leader said. And this is not politics. This is about who I am and what I represent. It has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with respecting what my ancestors went through. Just as Robert Amara had the concept, was imagining that he's telling you he heard that from a professor. And if that professor did what he was supposed to do, he would know what he was saying was not so. And so imagining that is taught to a whole culture of people who does not have, right, in this country. So let's move on. I heard you said you have so please allow me. I didn't write down this, so this is...
Go ahead.
Right. I heard you say that you have a problem with what the opposition leader said. You disagree and you're disenchanted in what she said.
But
right?
I didn't use those words. I can't say.
Yes.
Again, I can't say I disagree. Like I said, if you write the statement down on a piece of paper and read it, it is a true statement.
So hold on.
However, the problem is who said it. And non-African people should not and can't. Sorry?
Just as you use the phrase, if you make a comment against the Jews.
Right, well, that is the classic example. Because the Jews have been successful in establishing laws constitutionally in 17 countries, mainly throughout Europe, that if you deny the Jewish Holocaust, you can actually be subject to criminal prosecution.
So this is my point. From the time the lady said that to me, it took me back to the feeling how my ancestors feel, just as the
exactly
Prime Minister showed the force of trying to change what we went through in order to acquire the name that I have today. That is where that took me back to.
Of course.
Right? So that is where I am disenchanted with the person who is trying to be a leader again of my country.
Exactly. It's not the statement that was wrong. It was the person who said it.
Right.
Okay.
What she said is accurate.
Correct. Exactly. That's what I said.
Hold on. Yes. Right. I do have a slave. Right. So I am not defending that what I have is not so. But
right.
My problem is who said it and where it was said. That was disrespectful and that took me back.
Exactly. Agreed. 100%. But thanks so much for your call. So we're on the same page with that. Caller, good morning. Caller.
Good morning, Brother David.
Yes. Good morning. Good morning to you.
I just have a couple of points to make on famous Trinidadian Black African nationalists, and we cannot forget the woman.
Of course.
Claudia Jones.
Oh,
right?
come on.
And also, one of the things I noticed is that we talk a lot about bringing up our black boys.
Yeah.
What about our black girls?
Well, let me say to you. We
have program for women too.
Yes, but let me say to you, my beloved sister, that the Girls Academy has already been launched since about early last year, and they have had a number of sessions. It's a different kind of format, but I think up to last week Sunday there was another session. They've been having sessions every 2 weeks for about the last couple months or so. So yes, the Girls Academy is called the Young Black Queens Club, and again they well, I'm not involved because we don't get brothers involved in the sisters classes, but they've had a lot of great people come in, talk to the young girls, talk to them about their natural black beauty, about their self-esteem, the sacredness of the black woman. Again, there's a very heavy emphasis on education, on development, social skills, life skills, etc. So yes, the Girls Academy, maybe I haven't been speaking about it enough, but yeah, definitely, of course, the Girls Academy has been launched before the Boys Academy.
It should be volumized a little bit more because there's a lot of people out there, including myself, didn't know how far that program for the girls and women have progressed. And on one other point, an earlier caller was talking about people who were afraid to go to Laventille and all that. Well, okay.
But I think that's fading out, to be honest.
That's fading out, but I don't think it's just a matter of, people not wanting to go to a bad area. One of the things I had somebody say to me is that they are reluctant to go to the center, despite all the work that is being done, because they do not want to be proselytized to, or they think it requires some sort of religious conversion. And that needs to be clear, that is not necessary. That is for all black people, no matter what stripe, whatever it is you got going on, is about uplifting black people.
Yeah, and there's a simple response to that too, in that, so we are Muslims, of course, who built the center, the Nation of Islam. But again, I don't have the exact statistics, but in my estimation, at least 75% of the people who visit that center are non-Muslim. At least 75%. On a Friday, we'll have much more Muslims for the Juma and so on, but outside of that, all our activities, all our classes, in fact, we have classes with students, no Muslims in some of the classes. So, yeah. But thank you so much, though.
But thank you, Brother David. And
where are you calling from?
First, I am temporarily outside from home.
All right.
Doing a little study in environmental science so that when I get back, I can make an impact on our climate and our gratefulness for the beauty that we have back home.
That sounds powerful.
Right? Our beautiful island is getting assaulted, just like black people are being assaulted. There's a lack of care for what we have. And when I'm here, lately, I've been hearing some, what I call sometimes Trinbagonians. They all up for, Trinidad, we go for carnival, we go for food. But on the other tongue, they bad-mouthing, like, oh my God, the crime, this, but what you doing? What are you doing?
Exactly. What are we doing about it? We've already identified some problems.
In Washington, D.C., protesting for Americans, but you're bad-mouthing your Trinidadian people and Tobagonian people on the other hand, and you're investing all your energy and your money to literally grow somebody else's economy. You get the free education that we provide here in Trinidad, and then you take it, and I'm going to talk about the brain drain. I won't take up much more of your time, but that brain drain, where they take all that free education and then they go literally develop somebody else's country talking about, oh, well, the money and we can do a little conversion. Well, excuse me?
Well, I like how you've outlined that you're there temporarily. But thank you so much, beloved sister, for your call. Caller, good morning.
A pleasant good morning to you, dear doctor and philosopher.
Good morning, sir.
Dr. Mohammed time is against us. This morning it was very difficult to get in, but I am here. So let me see how quickly I could put it in a nutshell and move on. First of all, let me say this is one person by the name of Demarius Horsley, Mr. Tabakit, National Awardee, Hummingbird Silver, third highest award holder. One thing I would want to put everything inside of the nutshell is the word appreciation. And I'll tell you why I am using that word. Growing up long time in an African home in Tabakit, one of the key words they taught us is appreciation, how to appreciate people. Tabakit, why use that word? It is critical and paramount. That is what kept African people on time. How to appreciate people. And Dr. Mohammed, let me say it now. I appreciate you from the time you start agenda, from the time you started to bring African history. Better than Mr. Tabakit, I appreciate you. But why this word is coming in? You see, I'll tell you, Baba, in order for you to remember what's happening in the African community, the word appreciation, thoughtfulness, and we got to get back at that place. I appreciate you, Dr. Mohammed, for all the studies, all the books, all the think tank skills bank. You have been this nation, the Caribbean, and the entire African diaspora. You have been bringing that. And if there is no other way to use this thing, I could have gone all over the place. But what way to create a doctor? Let me say it's coming from someone who holds the country third highest award, which I do not respect at all. Trust me. Let me repeat. I do not get respect. However, God will get the respect. But I say to you, Dr. Unfriend, I appreciate you from the day you started and stepped foot in Woodford Square to now the Kwame Toney Institution. I say, dear brother, to you and your family, Tabaki is saying you appreciated for all the knowledge, and as you continue to write books and educate the entire African community throughout the world, Tabaki is saying, I appreciate you for all you have done for the African community. Mr. Tabaki out and home.
Well, I want to say thank you so much, Brother Tabakit. And thank you all to everyone who called in, to everyone who listened, to everyone who messaged. I do very deeply appreciate you also. To the critics, I say I respect your view. The sincere ones, because I know there are deliberate mischief makers, but to the sincere ones, I thank you as well for your remarks to help keep me sharp and on track. So, George Padmore Boys Academy this morning, 10 o'clock. Stay tuned to the Street 919 FM.
The views expressed are not necessarily the views of the manager.